This location here is a little different than a lot of spots that we pick because it's not really on a main road. Armenia has a busy road, we 30,000 cars ish, but it's a little off. It's off the main road. Hillsboro's just under a mile away, and that's the main drag here. This location for us was really the apartments. We've got apartments everywhere, right across the street. There's apartment complex behind that. There's apartments behind this. There's apartments. Then we've got the right housing in this area. We've got low middle income housing. Then we also have an elementary school right across the street where if you sit out in this parking lot, I don't know the percentage of schools that have car drivers and bus riders and walkers offhand, but I can tell you that this has got a lot of walkers. So there's a lot of parents walking their children to school and from school every single day. And from our observations, more than 50% of them come from that way, which is they're going to walk right by our door twice a day. Well, actually 4 times a day usually. So we're hoping to get them in here, some of those times. We always we'll shop our competitors for usually a couple of months before we pull the trigger on a location. We want to see what their traffic's like, what time of day they're busy, watch their parking lot, watch who's walking in their door, if they're shopping, if they're pawning, if they're selling, and also use our ears a lot to observe what they're doing at the loan counter at the time of the transaction. We'll shop them every way possible. Usually we do a couple of pawns or send some people in to do some pawns for us to see what they're paying, what they're giving on gold, what they're giving on general merchandise, how their service is while they're doing it, if they're actually testing the merchandise, and then if they're carrying the stuff out for customers, and how you're treated and how quick you can get in and out with the money. The signs are huge. As far as it's still your number one customer driver. You've got to maximize and push the limit on, if you're going to push the limit on anything with city or government, and you want to do it with signs. We do LED signs everywhere we possibly can. This location's got a rental trailer out there now. As often as you can do banners, as often as you can do anything to get people's attention out there, and anything moving on signs. And if you've got a reader board, change the message as often as possible.
At least once a week.
At least once a week. Security and signage are 2 things you can never have enough of. Redundancy is huge. We like Sonatrol because they're the only company that really offers audio monitoring. I can't tell you how many times we've not had to drive to a store at 2 o'clock in the morning because you can hear something falling off the shelf. Combine that with now the technology with the video that you can see on your phone, and you can see as you're driving around. We believe in having cameras that are visible and cameras that are not visible. And because you're not only trying to secure your inventory and your product and make sure your customers are safe and make sure your team's safe, but you're inspecting them with your cameras also. Is now I can sit on a computer and watch 8 different locations, everything that's happening, of which they know about 90% of the cameras. The other 10%, they don't know where they are. You're watching the front, you're watching the back, and everything in between. The theft is not usually in the front, it's unfortunately somewhere between the front and the back. And your trash cans, things like that, you want to make sure that they're always in an area where there's cameras. A trash can should never go out of building.
It might be loaded with an iPhone.
It might be loaded with an iPhone or a whole. I've found 25-inch TVs, two
Sure.
TVs in there in trash cans before, back in the day, and you can never be safe enough. You have to have eyes on everything. Again, every market's a little different. From our observations around this neighborhood, we figured out that tools should be a pretty popular item over here. Day 4 so far, I think we're right. But again, my Oldsmar location, for example, is not a heavy tool store. They're more electronics and technology and then jewelry. So that store, if we were to do a startup in that neighborhood right now, we would have probably 40-50% of the tools that we've got at this neighborhood from where we drove around and our competitors and observed them selling a lot of tools and loaning on a lot of tools. So we know that this neighborhood's a tool neighborhood. So we'll stock this store a little heavier in the get-go with tools and feel it out and kind of weigh it out to see where we've got to be on an inventory level. got to play the odds, and the odds are that you've got an educated shopper, not an uneducated shopper, especially in 2018. Everybody's got a computer in their pocket, and you can look up anything walking around, find out what it's selling for. So the days of pulling out the Sears catalog and flipping through the Sunday paper and hoping somebody had a 2-month-old Sunday paper and they were looking at 2-month-old ads,
Right.
or you leave that one on the counter and that's the one they flip through. Those days are gone. So it's all about being aggressive and making your money work for you. When we do a startup, we like to make a first impression that is bigger and better than any of our competitors would have. We like to stock it heavy, and in our cases, we buy our customers at our locations, our new locations. We're going to pay heavy on merchandise they're bringing in, but when we're bringing merchandise over from the other stores, it's a little bit of a guessing game. We can tell by some of our observations when we're around the other locations in the area to know, okay, this neighborhood should sell a lot of this or that, but until you put it in the store, you don't really know. So we're going to load it up with a little bit of everything at first, and then we'll probably give it a 6-month thermometer, and then we'll run a bunch of reports and figure out what categories are moving and what categories aren't moving, what categories are moving for a premium over some of the other locations, or what categories we're having a discount over other locations. Then we'll make sure that either the merchandise is moving in or moving out. You want a good selection and good variety also, because people tend to not pawn merchandise unless they see the merchandise there. It's really hard to do it alone on a chain if you have no chains for sale or no jewelry for sale. And same thing with people will ride right by your store with a bicycle if you don't have a bicycle out front for sale, when they'll come in and pawn the bicycle if you've got the bicycles out for sale. Everything you do is designed for visibility, appearance, and for customers to keep coming in and for a profit. Everything we do is loan driven. It's like we were talking in the car, is the name of our stores are Pawn Max. It's not Sales Max, it's not Customer Service Max, it's Pawn Max. We want to be excellent at pawns, and the only way you get excellent at pawns is if customers know you take it all, and the best way to show them you take it all is to have it all. You don't want to cannibalize your other locations with pawn customers, but you want to let the retail customers know that they're going to have another place to shop. Because pawn shoppers tend to hit multiple pawn shops. A pawnee may be loyal to a pawn shop, to the dollar really, not the pawn shop. As long as you're still paying them the dollar, they're going to go there. But shoppers tend to, by definition, they're shoppers, so they're going to go around. In our case, we did a lot of social media marketing on top of a lot of store stuff, and we did some geofencing around some other local businesses and local competition that we thought would draw traffic to here. Our pop-up ad just presented our holidays, whichever sales flyer we were running at the time. We did a huge Black Friday sale, then we did a early Christmas sale, then we did a full-on holiday sale. So those three, depending on the time of the month and time of the year, will be what pops up in their geofence. Yeah, we did a 50-50-50 promotion on day one here. The first 50 customers get 50% off up to $50. And on day one here, we had 36 of them show up. And so it was a good promotion, very good promotion for us. It drew a lot of traffic in the store that we would not have had otherwise. When you think you have enough capital, multiply that by 3, and you might be able to start thinking about having enough.
Yeah,
that's
three. But what
3
you
was
learn
conservative.
early on is how much to ask for is probably what you learn by experience, right?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, when you're putting money on the street, you don't get it back right away. So you've got 42 days before somebody makes an average payment on a transaction, and then when they're paying on their transaction, you're not getting 100% of it back. You're getting, in Florida, 25% of it back. So you get 1/4 of your money back 42 days later if you're loaning right and qualifying right. So you might write $250,000 worth of loans and have a $250,000 loan balance before you see your first dollar back from that. In that same time, you're going to buy another $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 worth of merchandise. So you're out $350,000, $400,000 before you get $10,000 back. You've still got to keep writing loans while that money's trickling in every day. So now you've got $350,000 or $400,000 on the street between pawns and buys, and now your retail is just starting to trickle in, but your pawns are still going out day after day after day. If you're doing it right, your pawns are growing every day. You write 1,000 a day, you might write 1,100 tomorrow, you might write 1,200 the next day, and you hope it's going to keep growing like that until you reach a peak and kind of levels off. But you've still got a boatload of money going out the door on top of all your utilities and your rents and your payrolls and your insurances and all that stuff before you get a return on your investment. You've got to have enough capital to keep feeding that monster, that beast, until it stops being hungry. Hopefully it keeps going, but hopefully it keeps cash flow. Hopefully you start cash flowing positive right around that 4th or 5th month. That's when you should start getting some of that money back in. Hopefully enough to where you're not giving out a whole lot more than you're getting back in. We 3 of the stores that we manage for another group had that very problem. They ran out of money. They turned off loans for a while. They were only doing copy loans. As soon as we took them over, slapped a new name on them, and kept the same people in there,
Brought some money with you.
and brought some money with us, it went through the roof. And we're, again, pawn max, and pawn is the key word. And if you're not right in pawns and you're not aggressive on pawns, you probably don't belong in the pawn business.
And that 3 is probably a fair number. I mean, if for anybody listening, whatever amount of money you think you've raised, if you want to be successful, multiply that times 3.
Absolutely.
And in a state like this, maybe 4.
Maybe 4, absolutely. You might have a store you think is going to be a $200,000 store, be a $500,000 store.
But to get to 200,000, it takes you 400,000
$400 just to
in
get
cash to write that many loans, just
Absolutely.
to get to 200,000 loans. And that sort of math
Mentality.
doesn't really,
it's hard to
it
click.
comes out of experience.
And you still have payroll, and you still have utilities, and you still have security and insurance and software fees and this, that, and the other thing that go with that. On top of that, 200,000 going on the street.
And we talked, the irony is the more aggressive they are, the quicker that break even
comes. Absolutely. The quicker you get money on the street, the quicker it comes back. And it's a turn and burn game. You cannot be in love with everything. Your inventory can kill you just as quick as customer service can kill you, or running out of money on your pawn counter. We're not collectors. I like a lot of the items out there. I don't love any of them. I like the money coming in the cash drawer, and the only way you get that back is you've got to be aggressive on both sides. You can't price higher than Walmart or Best Buy and expect to sell it. You might get a lucky person. You might make a lucky sale every once in a while, but you've got to move your merchandise, and you've got to move your money, and you've got to sell. All you're doing is selling money. If at the end of the day you made $200,000, but your inventory grew by $100,000, your pawn balance grew by $100,000, at the end of the day you're left with 0. You're still not putting any money in the bank or taking it home to the grocery store to buy food. So you've got to manage your inventory just like you've got to manage your pawns. And if your inventory balance, if you're selling $30,000 a month in inventory and you have $300,000 worth of inventory for sale, you have 10 months worth of inventory if you never do a default.
Right.
And you're going to do defaults because you're right in pawns.
12% a month of your loan balance
is going to drop, absolutely. And so you've got to keep that moving. You've got to know that your pawns are going to default, and you're buying stuff every day. And if you're not at least selling what you're pulling, then you're just going to keep growing and take every earning, take every dime you made and throw it away. That is a battle. That's the biggest battle when you're running multiple locations, because generally speaking, you've got 7. Like in my case right now, we have 7 spots that work, and you don't ever want to break something that's working to try and make something else work. So it's
a guess.
It's a guess. It's a lot of guessing, and then like this location is very Hispanic, so my Hispanic team members are the first people that we're going to bring over here, and we're going to see how they click together. We're going to see how they work together, and we're going to see how it meshes at this location. Because just because they speak Spanish doesn't necessarily mean they're going to work well with these customers, or they're going to work well with their team. They may have had a perfect fit at the location they were at. And sometimes you can take a good person and ruin them by moving them a couple miles up the road, and sometimes you can take a mediocre person and make them great by moving them a couple miles up the road. But you got to be engaged with your people. You have to know what they're doing. You have to talk to them on a regular basis, and follow up, and follow up. It takes a lot of dedication for a company to put a new store together. It's not one person. It's not 2 people. It's not 3 people. It's not 10 people. It's everybody coming together, and either they're in or they're out. And if they're not in, then they're out, and we don't need them. People make or break your business for you, especially if you can't be multiple locations and you can't be in multiple spots at one time. They're your direct representatives to the customers. They got to share in your vision. They have to buy into it. They have to believe in what you're doing. They have to feel like they've got a future, and that's where growth comes in. If you've got one store and you're standalone, you've got to find alternate ways to motivate your people to stick around. And honestly, I can't help with that very much because we've never been in, non-growth mode. So we're always looking to promote from within, and that's kind of a promise we make. You know, in the first interview we have with a prospective employee is going to be, you know, number one, do they want to grow with us? If they're stagnant and they're happy just being a floor sweeper, then probably they're not going to end up working with us, because we don't need to have just floor sweepers forever. Everybody's got to have a floor sweeper, but I want the floor sweeper that wants to become more than a floor sweeper. So your people, you know, your people are you. They're in a direct extension. So we try and really educate them. We do some training. We do a lot of hands-on training, because the best practice comes from right out there. You can't do anything in a classroom setting or a training center setting that's even close to what it's actually like to have a customer standing on the other side of the counter, interacting with you or the person training you, and you're hearing the actual conversation, not a, you know, I can script things all day long, 20 years in the business. It's never going to be what comes out of that customer's mouth the next time. So the best training is out there for when it comes to dealing with the customers. Now the product knowledge training is a different ballgame. That you can put a lot of products in people's hands really quickly and show them how to test stuff, show them how it works, show them how to make sure it functions correctly, show them, make sure it's got all the pieces with it. And then, honestly, the best way for valuation with training people is give them the pawn walks, and let them walk your stores. And you know, our other Tampa location is a busy one. We bring a lot of people into that location just to walk pawns, so they can see a lot of items in a short period of time on what we're paying and get to know values. And this, you know, if you're loaning 60, 60, 60, 60, and they get done doing a walk that's got 10 items that you loan, the same 10 items you loan 60, 60, 60 on, and they're all of a sudden loaning 40, you've got a problem. Or if they're loaning 80, you've got a problem. If you're not making money, they can't make money. And if they're not making you money, you're not making money. And you can't pay them everything. You can't give away the farm, but you have to compensate them correctly, or else they're not going to look out for you. Transparency is what is trust. And you know, if you hide things from your team, they're going to hide things from you. And you know, you can't expect people to do something that you're not doing for them. And you know, I want them to be honest and open with me if they have a problem, or if they do something great, or if they do something bad, or they screw up. I want them to tell me. We want to talk about that fake Rolex, or we want to talk about that moissanite that we thought was a diamond, or we want to talk about those transactions. We don't want to hide them. And just like if their P&L says $100,000, I'm not going to show it to one that says $80,000 so we can keep $20,000 off to us.
Right.
It is what it is.
But you do compensate them based on how well they perform,
Absolutely.
correct?
Our teams are all paid a percentage on their transactions.
And you wholly believe in that
Oh,
approach?
yes. They've got to buy into it. They've got to treat it like it's their business, and they've got to buy into your deal. And the only way to do that is in my opinion, if you're paying them based on it, like they've got a stake in it.